What's up? My name is Matt Taro. I am here with my co-founder, co-host, and
Oh, my name's Brandon A. Denson.
there he is. And we are the Snack Kings, and we have labeled ourselves as the Kings of Snack. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means. We just made it up, so bear with us. We kind of just started talking a little bit about like what you define as a snack, and then ultimately, like I think first maybe what we would define as a meal. So what do you define as a meal? And then if it's not a meal, is it a snack? What do you define as a meal?
I define a meal as like sitting down and having like a full meal. And that could be, I would say like your servings of vegetables and starches and carbs or whatever it is that you're eating, like a full meal, like portioned out, versus a snack being, something that you're kind of just doing in between like meals, whether it's in between breakfast and lunch or between lunch and dinner.
But you've had meals that don't consist of all the food groups.
Probably more times than it should be.
So basically, a meal to you and maybe a lot of people would be and it doesn't have to do with time, what time you eat it. It doesn't necessarily have to do with who you eat it with or where you eat it, but most importantly, it's the contents of what you're eating. So if what you are eating has different groups of nutrients or food nutrients, then it would be considered a meal. So it's got fats, it's got starch, it's got leafy greens and protein, and maybe like a dash of sugar.
So it's pretty diverse.
Diverse.
A diversity plate of servings.
And then what's a snack to you?
Anything
That's not a meal?
anything that's not a meal. It could be a piece of fruit. That could be a snack, right?
That's
But that's still a good, that's a good snack though.
It's a great snack.
But sometimes the snacking could be, maybe you want a bagel as a snack. Maybe you want, cheese as a snack or yogurt or, almonds or pecans or peanuts or.
So it looks different to everybody because I would say that there's a lot of people out there that consider the word breakfast as a defining meal.
Yep.
And then you say, what did you have for breakfast? And they're like, oh, I had yogurt and a coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's a meal. Well, technically that's a snack.
It's a snack.
It's a snack.
It's definitely a
so
snack.
You should have eaten more than that.
But, yeah, and I think that's where it can get a little bit challenging and confusing because, like, dealing with diabetes, you deal with it a certain way. So far as eating is different. And I think it's based on, what far as how to maybe fuel yourself or eat properly is based on kind of like the information and knowledge that you actually have, of eating properly or eating the right size portions. Like you said, I don't think timing has a lot to do with it. I think it's just as long as you're getting the right stuff.
Well, and I think maybe I was wrong about the timing because people consider there to be how many meals a day. How many meals, if I said, how many meals typically would somebody be having to be sustained throughout the day as far as nutrients, like sustainable intake throughout the day? Like how many meals would you say most people are going to eat or look to eat?
I would say 3.
3. Ding,
3.
ding, 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 ding.
3.
Great answer. So if that's the case, and most people are thinking about meals as 3 times a day, but you're eating like as a diabetic, like how many times a day do we eat?
Yeah, a lot.
We're like grazing.
Way more than 3.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are probably going to find themselves in that boat where they eat more times than that throughout the day. So then ultimately, no one's making anybody define something as one or another, but I think we are. And I would like to say that a meal is what we just defined as something that's got nutritional value.
Yep.
It's got different elements and nutrients in it. That was what makes up a meal. It's also something that I know is like a bridge in between one meal to the next. Like if I can get from my morning meal
Yep.
to my afternoon meal, that's really good if I don't have to have a snack in between.
Anything in between. But what are the chances of that happening?
Like 3,000%. Oh, you mean of me not eating something?
Yeah.
Oh, 0.
I'm on the same page.
Yeah. So if I'm like, oh, after breakfast, which is the morning meal, we'll call it. I'm like, oh, after breakfast, I'm not going to eat anything until, 1 o'clock. So I eat breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I go, catch me at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my afternoon meal. And then I'll see you around 7 o'clock at night for my evening meal.
No chance. It's something definitely in between there. Definitely in between there.
So there's a difference then between a correction for somebody who lives with diabetes and a snack.
Very true. Because you have to at that point, if you have to raise your blood sugar, whether it's like with candy or it's with juice or it's with fruits. See, I just went to the extreme.
Candy.
I went to the likable things versus like the healthier options.
The likable stuff, man. That's what, like, when I think about snacking, like that's what I think of. Like I have memories of just snacking on whatever I had my hands on. Like I was busy, go to my cupboard. I'd be like, oh, I've got crackers and cheese.
Yeah.
Like that's snack. But like, this is so weird. It's not necessarily off topic, but like it's so weird. I wish, this is going to sound really strange, but I've thought about this. Tell me if you've ever felt this way. I wish that there was a way that let's say cookies, okay? I don't even care what kind it is, just anything that looks, feels, smells, tastes like a cookie. If I wanted to get a cookie from the store and the serving size is 1 cookie, let's say it's 2 cookies. Let's be generous. The serving size is 2 cookies.
That's like Oreos.
And yeah, right. And I buy something that has 10 cookies in it, right? So there's 5 servings in this. That means that if I buy it on Monday, that I should finish that no sooner than Friday.
Because it's a cookie a day.
I wish there was something that would not allow me to eat more than 2 cookies in a day. Like I wish that they were like locked up. Like I wish that the package I got from the manufacturer would, like, on Monday, like the first one would like pop open. Like some like futuristic type, like, oh, my cookies are open today.
Like some Back to the Future.
Yeah, so and then on Tuesday, the second one would open. And let's say it only opens at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, you don't need to be eating cookies before that in the day. Do I want to? Yeah, I would wake up and have my morning meal be cookies. It's not nutritional.
Cookies and coffee.
But that fantastic, bro. What are we, in England?
Mushroom coffee.
So, yeah. So, like, that sounds ridiculous. Goldfish.
Oh, man.
20 goldfish is a serving. That's not real. That's fake. Now I'm thinking about eating goldfish. But if I went to, we are not trained medical professionals. Disclaimer. Probably very important for us to state that. Goldfish. You can get a box of goldfish, bro. That's the size of your head.
Like the Costco. Go to Costco.
Costco. Yeah.
Ralph's. Yeah.
Part of me feels like that's what's killing America.
Well, yeah.
That's a strong statement, but like
but it's real. Let's just be honest. It's real.
I could go there and buy 10 of those.
Yeah.
And eat one of those every
day.
single day.
The whole box. And like you said, like it's killing America. It's killing people around the world. and I think sometimes it's based on, it comes back to the knowledge and the education on what's what. But then it also, not to only put it on, others, we have to put it on ourselves too, as far as having the discipline. But I think if you know what if you know what the consequences are, then you look at it a little bit differently.
I think some people don't look at the consequences until they have to face them.
So complications which is true.
There is nobody. Here's another thing. I'm talking about my futuristic, like, Tuesday afternoon, I want some goldfish. And my little goldfish packet's like, you haven't had any goldfish in 24 hours. Ding. And it opens up and it's like, you can now have 20 goldfish. I would want some kind of like regulation at the grocery store. I've thought about it like this. If I'm living with diabetes and I go into the store and I want to buy stuff, like, I almost want to have my stuff approved before I walk out of the store. Like, I wish somebody was there checking me.
It almost should be. You're absolutely correct. It should be some type of procedure, but also, if you're, if you're obese or, overweight or have chronic conditions, or there should be some type of guidelines that are handed down, I think, from a government standpoint, in that you have to check certain boxes when you're purchasing stuff. It should be, right?
It would have to be like a special grocery store that I could go into, and that when I went in, I swipe my card at the front, and it registers me as somebody living with diabetes. And then I go to put stuff in my cart, and it's like,
access denied.
Access denied. That's crazy. That basically is me saying that I don't have self-control, but it also means that the ability to go into a store and buy whatever you want, there is no limit other than the money that you have in your pocket, in your bank account.
Yeah.
Like, if I have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in my bank account and I want to go into Kroger and buy every last piece of sugar that they have,
it's like I
can do it.
You can.
Excuse me, sir, can you help me carry this to my car? Guy who works there is like, hell yeah, I can.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think it comes from, back to ultimately having the discipline, or being shown what's, what you should do, and ultimately what you can do. I think we all know that we can just go, if we want to go buy, 100 gallons of ice cream, we can do it,
What flavor?
But why is there no limit on what you actually can purchase, understanding the problems that can come along with that? I think you hit it on the head. Like, there has to be some guidelines, some type of regulations set in place for, when you're purchasing stuff that won't allow you to go over that threshold.
So, on the opposite side of the food that you take in, for someone like ourselves who live with diabetes, what is regulated?
Insulin. But there's regulation on something to keep me alive, but there's no regulation on something that can kill me.
Right.
Which, don't get that twisted, because insulin could kill you too if you take too much,
right.
And it can kill you if you don't have enough. But as it relates to food, there's no regulation on something that you can go purchase and buy that can ultimately kill you.
There's also a regulation on how often or how many or what you can get as far as the tool to help you live your life.
True.
So an insulin pump.
Yep.
So not only is insulin regulated very heavily, but the device. The
device is the tools that can actually help you live longer. And it's not saying that only if you use an insulin pump or you use a CGM, that's the only way, because there are a lot of pioneers in the diabetes community that have had huge amounts of success. And, that's kudos to them. But we live in a different age now to where we have access to these things, but not everybody has access to these things.
Bro, no one's coming to check how many forks I have in my drawer.
No.
That's a tool to use to eat my food.
For sure.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I can eat with my hands. I've done it plenty of times, especially after washing them. Please wash your hands. But like,
I mean, you don't eat pizza with a fork. You eat it with your hands. But you can eat pizza with a fork.
yeah, go on, do whatever it is that you feel like doing. People who are listening, you want to eat pizza with a fork? Go on, knock yourself out.
Jadakiss just did it the other day. So,
but please, also, I would prefer that we are no longer friends. Jadakiss is cool. You want to be friends? Jada would just holler. I feel like though it's really important. Like there is no. Depending on your religious background, depending on what you look at, I feel like there's this line between like what are the 7 deadly sins, and one of them being gluttony.
mm.
And that's something that, I mean, I've personally dealt with issues of overeating and stress eating. And so that's something I think is really important. And it's really hard for me to talk about because as a male in his 30s who has an issue with his body image, that's something that like no one did that to me.
Yeah.
No one showed up and was like, yo, you should probably eat that whole sleeve of Oreos.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. It was a little bit easier for me to do something like that when I used to use a substance like marijuana.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the munchies.
Munchies.
But because that's the type of situation that a lot of people find themselves in, you work an 8-hour day, you commute home, you are stressed about your job and your personal life, and maybe you use something like marijuana or alcohol to subsidize those feelings. So now you're in a position where you are feeling like you want to eat, and it is promoted by the fact that you are under the influence.
Yeah.
So now you're eating, and then there's no one, like, trust me, like, this is a slippery slope here, right? Like, no one's going to show up at your house and be like, yo, if you get high, like, you can only eat those 2 cookies.
Negative.
That you might as well not eat any cookies. You might not even want to know what cookies are, like, but you're going to find and seek out stuff at that point. Like, you could eat, like, a lot.
And I think that, since we're going down this slope, I'll be the first to admit that I think I have, at times, eating issues,
There's a card on my fridge from a woman I ran into when I was leaving one of my doctor's appointments in Los Angeles, and I never reached out to her, but that card has been on my fridge for some time.
I'm gonna have to use it.
And it was about people living, like people who have chronic illnesses, or maybe about diabetes, who have eating disorders. And that's not easy to talk about because it's like, that's the type of thing where like, oh, you should probably get help for that. I was like, well, if I'm just going to have to eat anyways, like, why do I want someone to like come in and tell me what to do?
Exactly.
So that's a really challenging position to be in because you want to do the right thing, but you also want to tell everyone to go pound sand and not bother you.
True.
Like,
and we spoke with somebody on a podcast, Alexis Newman. She deals, she speaks with people about, eating disorders and, healthy eating and multiple different eating options that you have, so that may be somebody else that I can possibly tap into too, and I think the other thing is like being aware of, your situation or whatever's going on too. For the most part, you have to be aware and you have to be willing to want to make change, but understand that you do have maybe an issue or a problem. And then it's okay that if you have an issue or a problem as it pertains to whatever it is, but just being able to identify the issue or the problem and then making a conscious effort to change it. And we know that it won't change necessarily right over, directly overnight, but, you just take the steps. You put one foot in front of the other each day, and then you just step forward and do the best that you can.
Yeah. Well, identifying a problem sometimes is only half the battle because I identified my marijuana use as a problem, so I stopped it, And then the bigger problem, and in my mind, like I was having trouble because I was always feeling full. I was like, damn, I was high all the time. So like I would just want to eat. And then I would be like, oh, I don't feel good. And be like, oh, that's because you ate 5 meals today and snacked throughout the day. And it's like, oh, damn, that's not good. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
My bigger problem is that because I stopped smoking marijuana, which sometimes, a lot of times, can be looked at as a stress reliever, the more stress I found myself under when I wasn't using marijuana, the more likely I was to overeat because I was compensating for that lack of.
So you're picking it up with something else.
So I was doing something else.
Yeah.
So like I would just eat. And I'd be like stressed. And then what makes you feel good?
The food.
Right? Like there are so many things like that make you feel good. One of them being food.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the top. Bro, if you eat a good meal,
you're going to want a good meal again.
You're going to want maybe that same good meal again, but you're going to think about that.
Yeah. It's crazy how the things that feel so good to us or for us aren't good, necessarily always good for us, you know? They make you feel good, but it's not, you know, it's not the best thing. And it's okay. Like everything in moderation, right? No matter what it is. Like if you have it in moderation, it's fine. But sometimes the moderation becomes the habit, and then the habit becomes, which, you know,
it's too much.
Too much.
Yeah. So if you're like, oh, maybe I should only have 4 cookies because that's 2 servings, and like I can do that. And then that becomes the norm. When you want to go a little bit above and beyond, now you're eating 6, 8, 10, 12 cookies.
Whole sleeve. 12.
Don't even get me started, bro.
A whole, you know, maybe the whole pack of Girl Scout cookies.
I'm gonna say right now on the record, what are the Do-si-dos or the peanut butter ones? I cleaned out. Sure. I've eaten a whole box of those ones.
Yeah, easily.
Like that's not even a question.
Keep the Girl Scout cookies away.
Get away from me. Get away from me. Young lady, you do not know what I'm dealing with. Get away from me.
Well, can I just donate? Can I
I'll
donate
buy it for somebody else?
Can I just donate the $4 or the $8 of the cookies I was gonna buy? Can I just donate it, and then you can give them to somebody else?
When I was smoking, they would be standing outside the dispensary. You come out from buying pot, and they're like, "Hey,
you know what? How do you say no to that, right? Like, sure, yeah, give me 3 boxes."
I'll be like, "You're sitting there with your mom, and your mom's like, haha, got you, sucker." And you're like, wow, after I smoke this joint, I would really like that sleeve of Do-si-dos.
Man. Yeah.
So like that's and then the other thing is we are currently and now as we are starting to migrate out of what we would call the pandemic of, you know, of our lifetime. Like what have we seen that has been as influential in our decision making and our efforts for ourselves is something like COVID.
Yeah.
People were stuck at home.
Yeah.
There was no one showing up at your house being like, hey, don't eat too many cookies in there. No one knows how many times I can go to Ralph's.
Yeah.
I could go to every grocery store in my community once a week.
And buy whatever you want.
Whatever I want. I could buy the same thing at every grocery store in my community once a week. I don't think I have much space in my kitchen for all that stuff, but I could do it. And then if I did that once a week, the people that see me in grocery store A aren't keeping track of what I buy in grocery store B. No, that's on you.
Yeah.
Right? And rightfully so. It's like, oh, well, no one's going to, like, that's on you. Yeah, it's a big responsibility.
It's a huge responsibility, and like I said, it goes back to if you don't have the discipline, you know, and that's tough because, like I said, if you think that it's okay, then you're gonna do it every single day until you're faced with, you know, the complications or issues, you know,
or you don't care,
or you don't care. Some people say, oh, whatever, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, this is the type of thing where, you know, I would say. Communicating with a medical professional is very important. I think one of the first steps you can make as an individual, especially living with diabetes, is speaking with somebody like a psychologist. If you have a therapist, utilize them. Be honest with them. Talk with them about the things that you think about that you aren't acting on, but you want to know the answer to. How does it make you feel?
Yep.
And then secondly, if you've ever seen or spoken with a nutritionist, then you totally understand the value of having somebody who knows about food go into great detail about how to take it in.
Correct.
And as Brandon and I start part of a study, we're beta testers for a good friend of ours. Shout out to Andrew and the work that he is doing. We're not going to talk about, or we can't talk about what exactly it is, but I can tell you that I'm going to be tracking my food for the next 6 to 8 weeks, like everything I eat. And I have these notebooks over here next to our desk that in 2016, I did exactly this. For 10 weeks, I tracked everything I ate because I sat with a nutritionist and she said, it's probably out of space. I sat with a nutritionist and she said, I couldn't recommend your diet right now to somebody that didn't live with diabetes, which told me that I needed to change what I was doing. So I started to track everything, water intake, all my food, how many hours I slept every night. Like, that was really important. So I would stress, if you have an opportunity to do something like tracking your intake and looking at what it is that you're eating, do it. Do it. And if you can start to go back, one of the most simple things I would say before we let you go today, I appreciate everybody tuning in and joining us as we talk about snacking and meals. One of the most important things I would tell you is if you could look at what it is that you consume every single day, that's a good place to start. If you work in an office or you have a home office, and when I was working, I would look at what was in my trash at the end of every day.
Yeah.
And I would go, whoa, I ate all of that today. Like, everything that's in my trash, I ate today.
Just being conscious. It's just being conscious, like having being conscious of what you're doing all the time. And sometimes it can be tough because you get so lost in the sauce with everything else that's going on that you don't really pay attention to it. And you kind of just go through the motions of everything. But I think if you're aware, you're conscious, you're making the proactive decisions on bringing certain things to work. Because we already know, obviously a lot of us have been working at home, which that could be even worse than going to work because now you're around all the things that you purchase from the store. And if you have kids, I'm sure you may snack on the stuff that they eat. So you end up putting yourself not in the best situation, but it's like controlling what you can control. So when you go to work, at least take those good items or those good snacks to work. But then on top of that, like, don't fall into the traps of when work orders like this amazing, delicious food that may not be the best for you.
Yeah, you can't regulate what someone's going to bring in and be like, hey, I made cookies at home last night. And you're like, get the hell out of here. Like, leave. Like, what you talking about? I didn't want those. I didn't need those. And they're like, well, I made these. And you're like, wow, I would really like one of those. I worked in digital advertising. So the amount of people that were sending food to my office to sway and persuade us to use them as a vendor was astonishing.
Easy.
Every day there were cupcakes and cookies.
Easy advertising, easy way to build an account with a company. It's super easy because who's going to deny, that the donuts or the cupcakes or the bagels?
Don't say donuts.
Donuts.
That's the problem, is you can't regulate what someone else is going to do because they don't know about your dietary habits.
For sure.
So they don't know what you need as or what you're going to regulate for yourself.
Correct.
So I show up, I'm like, Brandon, I got us donuts. And he's like, yeah, I don't eat donuts. He's like, but you got them, so I feel bad. I'm going to eat a donut.
I'm going to eat a couple.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, you're right. I mean, so I don't know. This was a good needed conversation.
Yeah, this is important. Talk about it with your friends, with your family, the people you spend the most time around. Make sure they understand what it is that you do to take care of yourself. A good place to start is food. Talk about it over a meal. Talk about it seriously. It's really hard because not everybody is as receptive to this information. If you're not affected by anything like diabetes, you don't live with any illnesses, chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, and you don't have a need to really worry about any of that stuff. Like that's tough. Like that's now you're in a different position. Like, you don't really care.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Talk about it. It's important. If you're interested in reaching out to Bolus Maximus, please do so. We're always happy to have a conversation. If you're interested in jumping on our podcast, being featured on one of our stories or on our website, please reach out. Yeah, we're going to talk again about snacking. Probably bring our friend Alexis Newman back and get her into the fold here. This is a really important conversation. Don't be down on yourself. Feel positive about what it is that you're doing. And if you feel like you can make an improvement, start to work on that improvement. It's important for you to do so.
Definitely. Always remember, we live with diabetes, but diabetes doesn't define who we are or what we're capable of doing.
That's Brandon A. Denson. My name is Matt Taro. We're part of Bolus Maximus. Keep it 100.
Keep it 100.
That's not on anymore, so I don't know why I did that.